Since the first professional British Army was raised in 1660 by Charles II, the soldiers of this country have been called upon to place the safety of the nation over their own survival and to risk everything to defend our sacred realm. But while heroic acts on the battlefield are well documented, history is replete with examples of the state failing to repay its debt of gratitude to the veterans of its wars. Contemporary accounts following the Napoleonic Wars tells of veterans struggling to readapt to civilian life, of drunkenness, and of former soldiers sleeping and begging on the streets. Although I'm no longer UKIP spokesman on veteran affairs, as a veteran myself, I still keep a watchful eye on what is going on in the armed forces community. And it would seem little has changed for our veterans today, who face issues with a lack of resources to help them resettle and find a job, massive problems with housing and homelessness, and little help in accessing health services, especially with the treatment of PTSD. It couldn't be worse, you may think, until you realise that some veterans, many in their 60s, 70s and 80s, also stand to potentially lose their liberty after being charged with historical crimes while protecting this country from terrorism. To give you an idea of what it can be like for veterans today, I would like you all to watch this short film I recently made.
The Armed Forces Covenant is a promise between the government, local authorities and veterans that when they leave the forces they will be given priority housing and mental health care. But there's an estimated 7,000 homeless veterans currently lying on Britain's streets, and many more are suffering from the effects of chronic post-traumatic stress disorder. You were in the military for a few years, were you?
5.5 years I was in.
And what were you doing when you were there then? What was your thing?
I went to Afghanistan, I was in Limpstone, Plymouth, Devon.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And then how long ago did you come out then?
I come out March the 21st because I was ill, man. Post-traumatic stress disorder, wasn't it?
How have you found, how easy was it for you to find help when you needed it most?
None. And all I've been doing is subsidising with alcohol. I've collapsed here about 10 times.
I mean,
I've got to have an operation on my leg to get...
What's wrong with your leg then?
I've got metal.
You got shrapnel?
On my leg, yeah.
Where was that from then?
That's from the way, obviously I
when you were serving,
yeah, serving and that, then, I've got it all there, look.
Oh, fuck me, mate.
And then I've got it in my back as well, went through that, but it's all stuck in. Look at my legs.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know what it feels, you know what, like 1 minute I'm up, next minute I'm down, 1 minute I'm crying, next minute I'm laughing. But I mean, and that's what we suffer from, don't you?
Most of the people on the street thinks that we are looking after our veterans. When you see some of the things that are going on with the homelessness, obviously we're not. And if one veteran is homeless, then there's a problem.
The problem we have with the military covenant is parts of it need to be changed so that priority is given all of the time to our armed forces veterans instead of every now and again, or whenever the council feels like it.
Now we have been told by the government that this problem doesn't exist. Well, I can tell you, speaking to these people, speaking to these charities, this is a very real problem on our streets.
I wouldn't wish it on anybody. It was a dark time for me. It was a time that led to, you know, wanting to take my own life.
We've still got 30 years of veterans on the streets, and obviously going back down to World War II as well. Because I've actually dealt with here anywhere from age 16 to 81. So obviously it's obviously different aspects and how people treat them as veterans.
We're sleeping out in Manchester, London and Leeds to try and highlight this problem.
So I have to say, after a few nights on the street, I was shocked at the level of veteran homelessness and ill health I found. The Armed Forces Covenant, finally enshrined in law in the year 2000, states, and I quote, "British soldiers must always be able to expect fair treatment, to be valued and respected as individuals, and that they and their families will be sustained and rewarded by commensurate terms and conditions of service." So I ask you, after what you've just seen, Is this fair treatment? Is it respect of an individual?
No.
Is it an equal reward for men and women who risk all to protect our way of life?
Absolutely not.
However, there is one issue that boils my blood just as much as seeing desperately ill men sleeping on the streets, and that's the historical prosecutions of veterans who served in this fair country during what was known as the Troubles.
Shameful.
No words can reflect the random brutality of the fighting, nor the mental and physical scars of those who fought in Northern Ireland conflict. And whether you call it the Troubles, the conflict, or Operation Banner, what happened here in Northern Ireland before the peace agreement was nothing less than war. And war is a dirty, brutal business, whatever definition you give it. And in nearly 40 years, the Troubles in Northern Ireland claimed more than 3,500 lives. Over half of the casualties were civilian, principally due to the guerrilla tactics employed by the terrorist organisations involved. However, of the combatants, for every paramilitary killed, 2 members of the armed forces and security services lost their lives. So while I'm thankful for the tentative peace we have today in Northern Ireland, it would seem some of our veterans and the Brotherhood must continue to fight. Rather than being thanked for the dedication, professionalism and service, veterans today often fear a knock at the door and being scrutinised over events that took place what seems like a lifetime ago, following the arrest and prosecution of a number of their peers. And from where I'm standing, the odds of being targeted in this post-conflict witch hunt are growing, as it seems it could happen to anyone who has ever seen active service. Now, I regularly speak to veterans who ask themselves the question, am I next? While the Good Friday Agreement allowed bygones to be bygones for paramilitaries, it seems no such courtesy is being extended to those who risked all in service of the country. To me, that's an utter betrayal. Today, not only do we as a society treat veterans little better than their forebears of the Napoleonic era, the government, those who send the boys and girls to war in the first place, seem determined to prosecute anyone who did their duty. The whole situation is a disgrace and an issue I am pleased to say that we here in UKIP would like to do something about. Those who've served in the forces often describe the bonds we share as like being part of a large family. And like all families, it's at times of adversity that the bonds of real solidarity and brotherhood are put to the test. Therefore, it fills me with pride today to launch the Veterans Group within UKIP.
Yeah, yeah.
As politically active veterans, our experiences, our common cause, and our loyalty will bond us together like few other groups. And through working together, as we all once did in defence of this country, we can make real change happen in the veteran community. Now, I have high hopes for the contribution the new UKIP Veterans Group can make to both UKIP's veterans policy and directly helping those in need. It should not be hard to make sure veterans receive medical care they need. It should not be beyond the realms of possibility to enforce and strengthen the Armed Forces Covenant, to make sure veterans get the priority services they are promised in thanks for their service. It should not be impossible to get veterans the help they need in tackling the mental health issues such as PTSD without passing the buck to overstretched charities. And it should not be outside of the government's power to extend an amnesty to all combatants of the Northern Ireland conflict, ensuring all men in failing health are not put through the ringer of the criminal justice system in the twilight years of their life. All of these significant challenges, but they are all challenges that can be overcome through working together for a better future for all. The UKIP Veterans Group will, I hope, play a full part in making these aspirations a reality. Thank you very much for listening.
Thanks very much, Mike, for a very impassioned speech there, straight from the heart. All of you guys have been introduced to me already. Those watching via live stream won't know who I am, I'm sure. I'm Keith Lonsdale, the Regional Secretary of UKIP in Northern Ireland. I was also the individual that sent in the proposal for the creation of the Veterans Group, which Mike has very kindly come over to Belfast to announce the start of. I'd just like to say a few words about why we've decided to do this and talk more about what the fabric of the group will be, rather than Mike laying the background to why we need this in the first place. Some time ago I was approached by Pat Bryant, our National Communications Director, who was looking for someone with a relevant background to assist with the establishment of a veterans group within UKIP. Having spent 18 years in HM Forces and a further 10 years as a police officer, I evidently fitted the bill and was tasked with getting the ball rolling. In order to research how such a group might be organised and presented to veterans, I spoke with a number of HM Forces veterans and serving personnel and ex and serving police officers to gauge their thoughts and expectations. The response was a little lukewarm and sceptical, not of UKIP per se, but of politics and politicians in general. This is understandable, given the way this group has been treated by the political establishment. I asked two simple, generic questions. Firstly, if you were a member of a political party that was considering forming a veterans group, what would be your expectations of that group? And secondly, would the existence of such a group influence your decision to join and or support a political party? In answer to the first question, the consensus was that we should give veterans a voice and provide a platform for the party to speak out on behalf of veterans on the back of their own real experience. It was felt that all too often, politicians and parties make statements about the welfare and attitudes of our veterans and serving members without ever having spoken to or otherwise consulted any of them. There was a definite positive overtone towards such an open support coming from an established party like UKIP, rather than the myriad other groups who don't appear to have any coordinated message or mission statement. Many felt that this would also allow people with experience serving in HM Forces and the police to have a more direct input into policy by having more ready access to formulate it, but not having the power to demand it. None expressed any notion that such a group, which could rapidly grow to significant numbers, could be used as a Trojan horse to take control of the party. That was simply not on anyone's agenda. It was also felt that forming such a group within the party, as opposed to a standalone group, would be seen by others as being inclusive rather than divisive. Everyone I spoke to expressed an interest in having somewhere to go, to discuss pressing issues in a way that might be heard, such as the Armed Forces Covenant, which most felt had been betrayed by the legacy parties. Issues affecting recruitment and retention, pay and conditions, and, importantly, foreign policy, in the context that it is often our service personnel who are at the sharp end of delivering it and suffering its most direct consequences. The answer to the second question, would the existence of such a group influence your decision to join and or support a political party, was a resounding yes. We have seen the traction attained by the Veterans and Democrats Party and others, and how they are already losing support because they either cannot agree on a way forward or because of conflicting personalities amongst their self-appointed leaders. The scope of veteran, which is described in the proposal document, encompasses hundreds of thousands of people in the UK, and many have shown their enthusiasm for joining groups purporting to represent their interests. Many of these people have spent a long time on the front line of what has gone badly wrong with this country, and are better placed than most to expose the mendacity of the prevailing establishment narrative, particularly with regard to crime, the failure of multiculturalism, and the folly of some of our foreign policy. Many of these people have suffered from the failure of government to honour the Armed Forces Covenant and the outrageous treatment of some who served under extremely dangerous and stressful conditions in Northern Ireland and who are now being dragged through the courts on Troubles-related charges, all of which were investigated at the time they happened, whilst IRA murderers they were protecting us from roam free with their get-out-of-jail-free cards. We must also remember the Iraq veterans who were hounded mercilessly by parasitic lawyers prosecuting what we now know to be fraudulent and vexatious claims. We are also seeing unacceptable numbers of veterans with PTSD and other service-related issues living on our streets without support and committing suicide at an alarmingly high rate. These people are an invaluable resource that is all too often overlooked. The advantage of setting up a veterans group within the party to attract new members is that our vision and intended destination are already clearly laid out. There would be no wondering what kind of party one would be joining, and it would be clear that the purpose of this group would be to help fit the needs of veterans within the context of UKIP's existing direction and policy, rather than trying to drag it away at a tangent, but with the ability to influence policy development in specific related areas, a symbiotic union, if you like. After discussing this with my former colleagues, I came to the inescapable conclusion that there is a great deal of potential benefit in forming a veterans group within UKIP, and that is precisely what we have done, and I thank Mike again for coming here to launch this.